S.T.A.L.K.E.R Shadow of Chernobyl released in 2007. For context, in the same year, titles such as Halo 3, Bioshock, and the original Mass Effect, all giants of the industry, made waves and raised the bar for video game quality in their own rights. If you ask any gamer about those titles, they'll have either played them or know of them. Asking someone if they've played S.T.A.L.K.E.R Shadow of Chernobyl, however, usually leads to the answer, oh my god, yes, I loved it, or what's S.T.A.L.K.E.R? And I can only imagine what type of game they're imagining from that. S.T.A.L.K.E.R Shadow of Chernobyl is an open-world, atmospheric first-person shooter, set in the exclusion zone of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, which, 20 years after that disaster, suffers another, which results in what's referred to as the zone. People flooded to this area, and it's now inhabited by people called stalkers, the military, scientists, and other factions, battling for control of the riches that await. The world is full of radiation from the initial disaster of 86, as well as what spawned from the creation of the zone: anomalies, mutated animals, monstrosities, artifacts with special properties, and at the center of it all, rumors of a monolith that can grant the wish of anyone daring enough to reach it. Today, we're diving back into the 2007 cult classic to answer the question, S.T.A.L.K.E.R Shadow of Chernobyl. Does it hold up? We'll play our way through the entire story, and I'll explain each of the 5 false endings, as well as the 2 true endings, and how to acquire each. I'll critique S.T.A.L.K.E.'r's moment-to-moment gameplay, systems, including its questionable AI, sound design, and world building. To begin, I should mention, S.T.A.L.K.E.R is a game close to my heart. I played this on release, and I remember being absolutely stunned by the game's freedom of choice, storytelling, and immersive nature. In 2007, games looked a lot worse than they do today. The upcoming S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 for comparison on how far we've come. But I vividly recall playing S.T.A.L.K.E.R, being scared to go into the underground areas due to the sound design and general creepiness of it. For context, I was 14 when this released, and can tell you as a 30-year-old man going into the underground still gave me chills, and I jumped out of my seat more than once. This series also spawned 2 successors, Clear Sky and Call of Pripyat, but today we're focusing solely on Shadow of Chernobyl. Tell me in the comments if you'd like to see the latter games explored. Chapter markers have been included, as this will be a long one. Starting at the menu brings me back. We can see the Chernobyl power plant through the brick wall. The menu music is ominous but not overpowering. It's setting a scene, and I'm already keen to start. It may be the nostalgia talking, but a good opening menu in a game is important. First impressions matter, as a significant portion of players barely make it past tutorials. You want to create buy-in early, and we have that here. It's a small detail, but appreciated. On starting a new game, we have 4 difficulty options: Novice, Stalker, Veteran, and Master. I went with Stalker, and after finishing, I would say Stalker might have been too easy, but we'll explore the difficulty curve as we progress. The lower difficulty levels give you a slight buff to your damage and some slight damage resistance. Now, the beginning cutscene. I adore this opening. It sets the stage for a cruel and unforgiving world, and surprisingly, it holds up fairly well from a visual standpoint. It's grainy and the colors are muted, but the zone is a dark and unforgiving place to the living. I wonder how much of this may have been technical limitations versus creative design. If it's creative, it holds up. If it's technical, less so, but doesn't hurt my experience. We see a truck full of dead bodies, driving through an intense storm which leads to its demise. Let's watch a bit further before I continue.
This one seems to be alive. What a lucky guy. At least death would have saved him from the dreams. Let's go and see what value Sidorovich will put on your head.
What have you got?
A body. It came from the death truck. It's got the mark.
Well, you know the drill. Leave him on
This is a live one.
Bullshit. You are lying.
Let the zone take me if I am.
The cutscene sets the stage for the game and raises questions. Why is this truck filled with dead bodies? Why is the mark so relevant on this guy's arm? And what does it mean? The man we see thrown so haphazardly onto this bench is our character. And it finally raises the main plot point. Who is Strelok? And why do I have a mission to kill him? We awaken in Sidorovich's bunker as we gain control. He claims he saved us, and that we can work off our debt by completing some tasks, which he says may help with our amnesia, and that he will look into it. We have no clue who we are. A simple story trope, but one I hope will pay off. He refers to us as Marked One, which becomes our name throughout the entire game. I like this. I'm not the chosen one. I'm not special. I'm just a guy that came off a truck with a unique mark. I wish we could explore the mark further at this stage. It does become an important plot point in the true ending, and surely Rumours would be alive and well regarding its meaning. He tells us he doesn't care why we want to kill Strelok. We must have our reasons. We're given a tutorial on how to use our PDA, which is important. Our PDA is our quest journal, our map, and each person we meet will have one. If they're dead and we search them, we may learn information. I'll touch on this later as it's relevant. We're given a basic task, and told to speak to Wolf, so off we go. While I want to ask more questions, a simple start isn't necessarily a bad one. Our character is not voice acted. The voice acting is decent throughout the game, but not all lines are voiced, meaning some conversations require text. I'll fill those in as we get to them. We receive some white text tooltips, but these only last a few minutes, teaching us how to jump, with space, crouch, and so on. It's a PC shooter, so the WASD movement and the controls work as you'd likely expect. Right click to aim down sight, left click to shoot, and so on. Taking a look at the HUD, we have a life bar in red. The blue bar is the status of our armor, which does have durability to it. We have a teal bar and stature indicator, as well as an indicator on how much noise we're making and visibility. In the top left, we have a minimap, and the teal marker in blue is telling us that our PDA has an update. Worth noting now, as it's very useful throughout the game, is the number on the bottom right of the minimap. This tells us how many alive humans are in our vicinity. Leaving the area or killing someone will reduce that number. This is really useful in knowing how many enemies are around you. Orange dots are neutral parties, green are friendly to us. Enemies largely can't be seen, other than occasionally when they shoot, as they'll pop up briefly on the map. Later, we will see grey dots, which indicate a dead body. The minimap shows us Wolf's location with this quest marker indicating we're nearby. Wolf tells us a man named Nimble was attacked nearby and asked us to rescue him. However, I remember from my teen years that with some simple parkour, we can find a new suit of armor, better than our starting set. On suiting up, we go out to save Nimble. But first, we find Tolik, near a dead body just outside camp. He's downed and needs a medkit to get up. We collect that health kit and bring him back to life. And as we do, his indicator turns green, showing that he's friendly now. There is a reputation system in S.T.A.L.K.E.R, and helping factions increases this. Helping gives you better trading prices and more information from a faction, while attacking will turn them against you. On saving Tolik, we go back to our first mission of saving Nimble. We find the group Wolf sent ahead of us, and we're given the option: go in alone or with the group. Now this might seem like a no-brainer, but I believe this is put here to teach the player that all NPCs are expendable in S.T.A.L.K.E.R. At any point, a valuable NPC can be killed. Their PDA will still allow you to complete missions if this does happen, to prevent you soft-locking the game, as important quest NPCs can easily be killed. We take the group regardless, as I'd rather have the backup, and when an ally or a neutral party dies in S.T.A.L.K.E.R, their goods are up for grabs. Our first taste of combat, and this is where the game begins to show its age a bit. Shooting is rather inaccurate, but this is due to our starting weapon, and this impacts both ourselves and the AI, so everyone is whiffing shots. It's like a game of t-ball out here. No one can land a shot at any range. Suddenly a bandit dips out with a sawn-off, and instantly one of our guys goes down. It is that easy to die in S.T.A.L.K.E.R, both for the AI and the player. A short-range blast of one of those things is lethal. All the dead bodies can be looted though, and holding F shows lootable items in your local vicinity. So we grab that sawn-off and show them who's the boss. The reload animations are pretty nice. Gun sounds decent, and for a 2007 title, it's holding up in terms of what you'd expect. I appreciate that this mission allows me to approach the compound from different angles. Enemies will make some attempts to flank, but as we'll see later on, the AI can be its own worst enemy. As we're looting, we get this sound cue and a pop-up telling us the information on a stash. This has always been one of my favourite aspects of S.T.A.L.K.E.R. Stashes are small lootable boxes, pipes, tree stumps in the world with hidden items. These get automatically marked on your map in the PDA, and lore-wise, these are items stashed away by the now deceased stalkers you've killed. They don't actively store items, these are set, but it adds a nice touch to the world, and is some great passive storytelling. You'll get a notification and learn that a bandit hid good loot to ensure no one else got it first, or learn of a betrayal between friends, with a losing party out of spite hiding everything in a stump before bailing. It all adds to the open, immersive world design. S.T.A.L.K.E.R tries very hard to make its game world appear alive and evolving, despite most pieces being static or set pieces, which we'll touch on as we see them. We save Nimble and complete the mission, gathering the flash drive from him, and he makes a rather interesting comment about having hid it from the bandits, but not where we're thinking. Nimble, I hadn't considered it, but now I am, and it's haunting. We take some time to loot the remaining bodies and explore the area. I appreciate the items in the world are scattered around. You'll find vodka and other items in crates, food and drink items on benches, I like a game that makes me look for items in places I'd expect. I recently released a video talking about a modern open world RPG that sets its loot almost exclusively in miscellaneous piles to be searched. If S.T.A.L.K.E.R can add loot into its general environment contextually, why can't all games? I adore seeing vodka on a shelf. Now I'm off to AA. We let Wolf know that Nimble is fine, and he rewards us with an artifact, and this gives us the option to take on a side mission. Side missions often involve killing creatures, finding artifacts, or locating individuals. They're passable as an open world option, but rarely have much depth in S.T.A.L.K.E.R, which is a shame, as this world would have had some incredible stories to tell. We'll ignore these side missions for this video, but they can be a good way of making some extra cash along the way, and are good pieces of content to experience for a first timer. Side missions have more context, as any stalker you meet could potentially have one, or have information to provide. Often they can be similar in nature, but say it with me, it lends to that open world immersion. Returning to Sidorovich, whose name I'm going to butcher throughout this entire thing, we pass on the flash drive and he has the option of special mission. These are our main story missions, so we ask for the next one. He tells us that there is a stalker by the name of Strelok. It's rumoured he's found his way into the far northern reaches of the zone. We're told it's a virgin area, a gold mine for artifacts. Given I've mentioned artifacts twice now, let's quickly break them down, as they're one of the game's key upgrade items. Artifacts are items found in the zone, most commonly nearby to anomalies. What's an anomaly, you ask? We'll show off one of those soon, but the short version is it's a localized environmental hazard. Artifacts can be attached to your stalker's inventory and provide passive buffs, often accompanied by a passive debuff. An artifact we find not far away gives us increased health, but reduces our overall defense against bullet damage and melee attacks from monsters. They are unique to the zone and are incredibly valuable to the outside world as scientific items. Imagine you're walking down the road and find a shiny rock, and on picking it up, you cut yourself, but that cut immediately heals. That's the idea. It would be worth researching. Sidorovich offers to help us find him in exchange for work, so we both benefit. We're told that he is working with other traders to investigate how to open up a path to the north. He has no clue how Strelok would have achieved this, but there is a problem. As you near the north, someone, or something, is stopping entry. An area blocks the way that starts, and I'm quoting this, boiling your brains. He has spies that believe that the Apragom Research Institute have found important information on this, and he wants it. We agree, and we're told to collect it and take it straight to the barman, another trader further into the zone. To get to the institute, we need to travel through an area called the Garbage. Before setting off, we do some trading. Any character can be traded with, but traders will have items worth buying and selling to. We pick up some anti-radiation meds and health kits and set off. I like the character motivations and world building so far. Artifacts are a creation of the zone. They are valuable, as they have unique properties verging on the supernatural. It's understandable why people seeking riches would flock to the area despite the risk. If I told you you could make 500k by crossing a field with some wild dogs and picking up a rock, you'd think about it. You'd probably be less inclined when we meet a bloodsucker later. But the closer to the center of the zone up north, the rarer and more valuable they become, as we near the zone's center. On our way to the Garbage, we hit a military checkpoint, but there is a marker to move around, so we explore it and find a dead stalker. On searching him, we get any valuable information from his PDA, so let's take a look. He's been tracking the movement of the anomaly in this tunnel to get through without needing to pay a toll to the military outside. I like this. Again, it's great world building. It teaches us to use our PDA to learn more about the dead bodies we find, and we get some really valuable information from this one. So let's get through it while I explain anomalies. Anomalies come in a lot of different varieties. This one is based in electricity. Getting too close will have you shocked and deal pretty significant damage. At times, if you get a couple of hits quickly, you can die. Some anomalies look like shimmering balls that can pull you in and explode, like with the flesh I showed earlier on. Anomaly hitboxes can be hard to judge, so all stalkers carry an unlimited supply of bolts. Throw one on the ground, and if it doesn't explode or cause an eruption, you're good to go. You're also equipped with a detector that will beep as you get close to an anomaly, but this works sparingly. And given this anomaly moves, I don't think it was too accurate, beeping a lot as I got close to the exit. I also decided before entering the tunnel, now is a good time to save. The game only autosaves when moving between locations, so frequent saving is advised. If I spend 30 minutes in a location and then die, I'll lose that entire span of time. As we're leaving the starting area of Cordon, we meet Fox. We ask him about Strelok. He claims he knows of him, but that he'd only ever briefly communicated and they didn't know him personally. It's mentioned that Fox's men had taken shots at Strelok's group, but no one was hurt and it was clear they'd been waiting for someone else, so they parted ways. Fox tells us his brother, Siri, knows about Strelok and he's located in the Garbage. Awesome, just where we're headed. What a coincidence. While I'm reading this, a group of dogs attack, ending the dialogue. This is one issue with an open world design, and a world in which quest givers interact with the world itself. It cuts our chat and we fight them off, but then Fox gets stuck aggroed against the wall, so we can't return to the conversation. Thankfully, it's captured in the PDA, so I can refer back to it. If Fox had died here, his PDA would have been able to fill me in on the basics of his dialogue. When we meet Siri, he tells us of a man named Mole, who knows the location of Strelok's hideout, which is nearby to the research institute. While S.T.A.L.K.E.R is billed as an open world, due to limitations at the time, it's split into locations, cordon, garbage, and so on, which can be seen through the map. You travel to an exit and pop out at a corresponding entrance. This does cause choke points in which you often have to fight, but for the design they've gone for, this also allows for set events to occur, keeping the open world feeling more alive. S.T.A.L.K.E.R does a great job of making its world feel alive, but the majority of it is static. As we arrive in garbage, we overhear a robbery. 3 bandits have a S.T.A.L.K.E.R cornered and are demanding his belongings. I decide to post up and listen to the conversation.
Your cash and your artifacts, and quick, you asshole. I've got no money, no artifacts. Don't you get it?
I like this aspect of player choice. I could dive in and help, but I'm curious. I wait too long and they open fire, killing the S.T.A.L.K.E.R. I could have stepped in and possibly saved them, but I waited and he perished. That's my bad. This is a common occurrence in S.T.A.L.K.E.R, but you're presented with an option. Engaging doesn't mean you'll succeed in your task, but you have the option and the world then plays out its event. I appreciate this because it grounds the player in the world. I'm not an omnipotent being with immense power. I'm one fighter trying to help or hinder depending on your playstyle. It seems small, but a set piece like this teaches me I can try to help, but may ultimately fail through no fault of my own. The zone is unforgiving, and failure is part of the process, and we'll see that again later on. Arriving at the area housing the research, we get a set piece. Another world event, occurring that is story-based and has been triggered by our arrival. We get a fly-through of the area. The military are trying to take back this location where stalkers have made their home. This is a good time to talk about factions. Each faction in the game have their own agendas and reasons for being. The military want everyone out of the zone. They want it cordoned off. Bandits just want to get rich and will kill anyone in their way. Stalkers are trying to make money, but are generally more relaxed and have a greater moral compass. They don't want to kill at face value like bandits, but they want to make some money. Later on, we'll meet Duty, Freedom, and Monolith. But for now, the military will fire at anyone in their way, so we clear up the area and talk to Mole. We learn that Strelok's stash is underground in the area, and Mole leads us to a manhole. He's unsure of the specifics, just that it is underground, so we'll need to find it ourselves. This is where 14-year-old me would shit himself. I distinctly remember getting here and having an internal debate about how to manage the stress. I'm going to take a moment here, bump the sound, and let you take in the atmosphere of this underground location. Tell me, that isn't one of the most atmospheric bits of sound design you've ever heard. The squeaking of ventilation fans, spinning long past their life cycle. Lights spinning, creating shadows everywhere. Lights blown out, creating dark corners. Wind blowing through the tunnels, dripping water, and the eerie sounds of what's lurking nearby. And acidic anomalies littering the ground, waiting to dissolve whatever steps onto them. Now, I kinda know what's coming. A bloodsucker comes screaming out. And this is where S.T.A.L.K.E.R really shows its age. Its enemy AI is often tethered to locations, particularly the monsters and mutants in the game. As I back up, it stops chasing me and begins to return to its starting point. Again, running at me as I cross the threshold of its aggro range the second time. I like to think it's protecting its territory, but in all honesty, it's a sign of the time this game was developed in. But 14-year-old me hated coming down here. 30-year-old me knew it was coming and still had chills. And while I'm looking at its corpse, a military guy walks into the room and scares the hell out of me. You can see me jump as he starts shooting. It's down here that the number on the minimap is really useful. Seeing the number increase and decrease as I move around, knowing I'm not alone down here is oddly comforting. Hopefully any more bloodsuckers go their way, but it also means someone could be standing right around the next corner. This is where S.T.A.L.K.E.R is at its best. It's a fantastic contrast to the open world, and we'll see this used a lot more as we go on. S.T.A.L.K.E.R is great at letting you breathe into towns or locations where other stalkers are, then bringing a tense surrounding to the open world as you traverse alone, and a terrifying nature to the linear underground levels filled with horrors. But I can feel I'm starting to drag out, and now we've addressed many of the game's systems, let's speed up a little on the story. We locate Strelok's hideout, a small room up a ladder. It's full of supplies, ammo, and health kits, as you'd expect, and we find the group's hidden information in a hole in the wall. A message from Ghost, one of Strelok's group. He tells us Fang died. It looks like Strelok left his group to go to the center of the zone alone, and Ghost has gone looking for him. Storytelling through dialogue and messages left by those before can be a risky endeavor. It risks leaving the player alienated and unsure where to turn. But given our amnesia story, it actually works. You feel like these messages lack context, but there is a reason for that. They were left for someone else, someone who would understand them. Like a private investigator, we're trying to piece these clues together. As we're leaving this godforsaken tunnel, we hear a guttural yell behind us, and we're attacked by another mutant. It's humanoid and using some form of psychic attack, but we break sightlines, take shots, and kill it easily. The enemy design in this game is quite good on the mutant side. If it were just humans, it would become very stale shooting guns non-stop, but so far we've had to deal with dogs, an invisible bloodsucker, and now an enemy that warps our vision, dealing damage. Admittedly, I remember how to deal with this enemy. It's called a controller, but if you don't know that breaking sightlines impacts its ability to hit you, it will continue to cause your screen to wobble and shake each time pulling the camera in. On our way out to complete the original mission, we slaughter a military compound, grab the research information, and bail out. To get to the barman, we need to enter duty territory. Sidorovich had informed the barman of arrival, so we're known at the gate and permitted entry. Duty are a faction of stalkers known for their discipline and strict code. Duty's mission in the zone is to prevent its dangers from impacting mankind. They seek artifacts, that these may be passed on to scientists, and refuse to sell them to the outside world. Their main focus is on eliminating mutants and doing their best to reduce the dangers of the zone. The player has the option of working more closely with Duty, doing missions for them and assisting them later in a number of ways, but we'll focus on the main story. It's worth noting though that helping Duty or helping Freedom, their enemies, can impact on the false endings later on. As we go to chat to the barman, we run into one of Stalker's many bugs. We can't talk to him. He's standing a little too far from the bar and we're unable to go around. Shadow of Chernobyl is notorious for bugs and crashes. I'll point these out when I notice them. A quick reload and we're good to go. Nothing major. The barman reiterates our goal of going north and tells us that the documents clear up some information, but we're missing the full picture. A lab known as X16 is mentioned and it matches the description of a location in the Dark Valley. It's a closed laboratory with 2 keys. The barman has one and someone named Boar has one. While we're here, we ask the barman about our main mission. What does he know about Strelok? After all, our mission is to kill him. Helping the trader is our side hustle until we gather enough information to find him. He doesn't give us much. Strelok was hardly ever seen at the Duty base. He's reported to be quite an experienced stalker, and the rumor continues that he got into the center with his group. But we know that his group didn't go with him, so information on this guy must be limited. And I see an option to ask about the Wish Granter, and I'm curious. The Wish Granter is a legend among the zone's community. It talks of a monolith, which may be what caused the zone to appear. When the zone exploded in 2006, they evacuated and it was cordoned off by the army. The zone was expanding. They were worried it would impact all of Europe. Many people near the center were killed. After a few years, people began sneaking in and coming out with artifacts. And like in any good capitalist society, it became a race for them, as scientists would pay enormous amounts. He continues, after some time, legends began to appear. Veteran stalkers would talk about a monolith that allegedly grants wishes, and people went nuts trying to get to it, apparently located in the Chernobyl power plant. There were reports of a massive black rock, the monolith. Apparently a stalker got in close. Despite the immense radiation, he felt the monolith calling to him. He came to see strange things in his head. It's unknown if it's true, but the legend tells he was granted his wish, and as a result, the zone grew larger. Interesting. So the zone grows, and people believe it is tied to this legend. There's a belief among stalkers that the zone takes more land when a wish is granted. This means that the zone wasn't created by the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. When I played this for the first time in 2007, I assumed that the zone was the result of this. But no, there was a second disaster in 2006, leading to the creation of the zone. But what caused it? We do find out later. Before leaving, we also ask about Ghost, one of Strelok's crew, and we're told he's working with scientists in Yantar. We know Fang is dead, so we sell some items, buy some ammo, and head out. Now we have a healthy stock, I decide to stick to a single gun for the time being. Having 50 kilograms of carry weight limits our overall inventory, and at this stage, a sidearm is largely pointless, it just doesn't do enough damage. On our way into the Dark Valley, we hit a strong pocket of radiation. The armor you're wearing not only impacts your bullet sponging capacity, but also how quickly you're impacted by radiation and other status effects. This is easily countered, however, if you don't have a good suit, by simply sprinting through the affected location and taking some meds, so that's what we do, ignoring the barman's advice that we need some decent protection. I would have liked to see S.T.A.L.K.E.R make better use of the radiation mechanic. It largely served as a health kit check for me, either healing through the radiation damage with medkits or radiation items. Moving on, we have to find the boar, the man who has the second key. It turns out he's a bandit leader. We sneak into his area, but quickly need to kill everyone present. Sneaking in S.T.A.L.K.E.R is a challenging task given enemy movements and having no overview of where enemies are, other than in your general vicinity. In the later games, you're able to engage with the bandits as an actual faction, do missions for them, build a reputation, but in Shadow of Chernobyl they're purely an enemy faction. Fighting our way through these hordes of enemies does net us a good amount of ammunition and medical supplies, which will be vital as we progress. As I'm fighting through this large warehouse style area, I'm reminded that while the design looks appropriate, the variety does wane slightly. It's often decrepit buildings or large open fields. Anomalies, pockets of radiation, and the natural inhabitants of the zone do keep this somewhat varied, and while we enter more of a cityscape towards the end of the game, we're often moving between set pieces, which is a slight letdown in an open world design. Something I do notice though, is that after struggling to fight the bandits in cordon with a pistol, I'm now mowing them down with an assault rifle. I appreciate the difficulty curve in S.T.A.L.K.E.R slowly increases enemy equipment with your own, leading to tougher encounters, but still gives you opportunities to show that you're strong. You've achieved greater accuracy with your weapons because you've got better stuff. One of S.T.A.L.K.E.'s failings in its combat is that often you can win any engagement by spam healing as you take damage. I say this with some foreshadowing for the finale of the game. This isn't something I hold against them significantly, as many open world games suffer from this same game design decision. In Fallout, you can pause in your Pip-Boy to heal, for example. At least in S.T.A.L.K.E.R you need to hit the hotkeys or open your menu, which does not pause the game. This is also a challenge faced by many shooters. Either you have a COD-style health regen system, or one in which you need to use items. I don't know what the best solution for this would have been, but something worth bringing up. It's also worth noting that up until now the combat has largely involved getting in close and either landing excess body shots or a couple close shots to the head, due to how inaccurate early game guns are. From this point on, enemies start to wear better armor. Not so much the bandits, but other enemies, which I'll point out as we go. From here on we slowly start to transition into headshots, but our current gun isn't accurate enough to pull these off consistently at range despite my best efforts. This, I feel, is simply a challenge of combat in games using guns. You either need enemies to be bullet sponges, or have everyone feel really weak. Headshots kill almost any human enemy with a single shot, leading to the late game being a shooting gallery, simply for this, and any other playstyle remains fairly inefficient. Arriving at the lab, we get past the bandits guarding the door, and make our way inside. Similar to the underground from earlier, this is another linear set of rooms with beautiful atmospheric touches. As I'm admiring the way this S.T.A.L.K.E.R perished, I'm wondering how a S.T.A.L.K.E.R got inside this locked laboratory, when the barkeep had one key, and the bandit leader another. Possibly a design oversight? As I turn around, I fail to notice the hip bone of the skeleton is floating in the air. And yes, it jump scared me. I should start taking note of how often that happens. But this is another level of great design, because it's informing us of what trickery is afoot, further into the lab. And of course, as we go downstairs, we see more of this. Some generic boxes begin to float ominously as we enter. This is further foreshadowing of what's deeper into the lab. We need to find the code to this door, and I want to do it as soon as possible. The clicking of the Geiger counter, the pulsing and waving and anomalies in the air, the clanking and distant sounds of what could be enemies fill the rooms as I search for the codes. This is where we're first introduced to Snorks. Snorks are mutated humans whose bodies can no longer keep them upright. They crawl on all fours and leap at you to attack. Relatively easy to put down with a shot to the head, but challenging to hit them as they run and jump. The loud grunting sounds they make resonates in these halls, and the tight angles make them terrifying. After almost succumbing to the flame anomalies, we do find a dead scientist and the code needed to get through. On the next floor down, we're again accosted by thrown objects, but we can't destroy these like we did the boxes. They're metal barrels, they can't be shot. These are the result of poltergeists who float through the halls. Poltergeists can throw items at you from rooms away and don't need line of sight, so waiting for them isn't an option like the Snorks. So we pluck up some courage and start looking for the codes to keep the next door open. I like that the design of these enemies is forcing me to approach this level with a different pace. If I creep from room to room, like I did above, I'll surely get hit in the back with a barrel, which do decent damage. Which we see here. I managed to take out one enemy, and while firing at another, I neglect the fact that I'm being pelted with heavy metal barrels while standing still to fire. Thankfully, the game auto-saved as I came into this area, so I start back up near the hip bone that slapped me in the head earlier, and I'll go tangle with those snorks again. Now I remember the code, so I try to be a bit cheeky and put it in, but it doesn't work. You need to find the code for the code to work. I do like this. It does prevent me from cheesing the game by looking up guides to get all the codes and running my way through. And no, the code isn't random. I get the same again off the body, and this time I save. Wanting to get the hell out of this level, because I'm still the same terrified 14-year-old boy inside, I move around dodging barrels and eventually find a way down, and we meet what should be the most intimidating mutant in the game, the pseudo-giant. A large mound of mutated flesh standing upon two thick boy legs. Unfortunately for this enemy, I noticed the red barrels, which I imagine did a large chunk of damage to it, and it went down with a single spray. This enemy again fell to the Stalker AI issue. It doesn't seem to be able to leave this room. As it approached the door, it turned away before dying, indicating to me it likely couldn't have followed me, which immediately reduces how threatening it seemed. If I know I can sit in the next room and be safe, is it really a concern? Now, I don't think I was intentionally cheesing this enemy. Any normal reaction would be to stand outside the door and fire in. If it had a shortened aggro range, but a longer chase range, I could have moved inside first, but alas, we dispatched the giant. Entering the main laboratory, we met with a gruesome discovery of what testing had occurred down there. Test tubes filled with humanoid bodies, and another poltergeist of the pyro variety. Simply being in the room appears to be psychically causing us pain, so we rush up and grab the documents, only to pass out into a cutscene. It's a small detail, but this lab shows us that some level of testing, likely human testing, was occurring here. What were they trying to achieve? As we pass out, we see a man in a coat, standing in front of what I imagine is the Chernobyl power plant. Thousands of rats begin to run his way, and like a true Chad, he thinks he can one-tap them all, so he starts firing. We hear someone call out the name Strelok, and we cut to white before ever seeing his face.
Strelok.
Was this a memory? A vision? If it's a memory, did we know Strelok? Had we met him before? It is a bit odd to just pass out and have a cutscene, but I like the world building here. On coming to, we hear radio chatter, and find some goodies in the next room to stock up on. It's the military. They've arrived. I wonder if somebody tipped them off. Were they involved with this lab? I'm not sure, but we battle our way out. Now I know I left some poltergeists on the floor above me. This would have been a great opportunity to have the military being taken apart by them, but they appear to have stopped on the first floor. What I love in all games, but specifically the S.T.A.L.K.E.R series, is that the NPCs, whether they're an ally or an enemy, are just as much at risk as I am. Later on, we'll see enemies attacked by mutants in the zone. I love seeing NPCs interact with their environments, and this feels like a missed opportunity. It could have again been an outcome based on my choices. If I didn't kill all the mutants so the military show up, they have to fight them. Or if I had killed them, I could have had a tougher retreat. As I'm killing them, I notice one of the bodies disappears. This is a common bug, and while it doesn't break my playthrough, an important NPC dying and losing their PDA could softlock progress. But that hasn't occurred to me in this game, but throughout the playthrough, I lose a lot of loot in this manner. I figure it is worth raising as one of the game's many remaining bugs. As we leave, Sidorovich tells us that military are attacking the bandits both here in the Dark Valley and in the garbage, so we have to use a different exit. We can't go back to the barman the same way. So we go to Corden, where he's located. We easily slip past most of the military, killing those we need to, and back where it all started in Corden. A quick side note on our way, I notice stalkers are again fighting bandits at the small farmstead. I help out and we see Nimble dead. What a shame. Sidorovich asks us to help him get some military documents from a nearby outpost, and I ask him if he knows what happened to me. And we're informed that they found me on a death truck, a corpse carrier, which was obvious from the opening cutscene, but strangely, no one knows what these trucks are doing. How is it that trucks come and go carrying bodies, but their purpose is unknown to so many, and those who trade in information like Sidorovich? The mark on my arm, these trucks carrying corpses. There is a lot hidden from the zone's community, but how and by who? As I'm hanging around the town, chatting to folks, we're attacked by mercenaries, private military contractors operating in the zone for unknown reasons, although it's likely they've been hired to complete certain tasks by outside influences. And during the attack, S.T.A.L.K.E.R dies. He was the one we saved right at the beginning, and I almost didn't notice it was him while looting the corpses. Is nothing sacred? F's in the chat for Tolek. Thanks, and we move on. Another great bit of world building here. The military outpost is broadcasting a message which incorporates propaganda telling people not to enter the zone. I'll play some of that with bumped up audio here while I slaughter my way through.
The zone poses mortal danger. We are here to protect you from the zone, not the zone from you.
This outpost could have been just another enemy base, but instead we get some great dialogue showing the purpose of the military in the area, or at least the outward facing purpose. While travelling around the local area and near this starting town, this can be heard faintly in the background. Propaganda or genuine messaging, it's unclear at this point, but it adds further ambience to the world and shows a great attention to detail by the developers. Slame, I just slaughtered them all for Papa Sid. After dropping off the documents, we start making our way back to the barkeep. On entering the garbage, we experience 2 hard crashes. On our 3rd attempt, I sprint through to avoid it, and we have no further crashes, which is a win. I'm not sure what caused this in the area, but that's Shadow of Chernobyl for you. In both instances, I was just shooting at military, and the game just ended. I should mention, I chose to play the game without any mods, but the community have a number of mods that improve gameplay, add new mechanics, and also bring a number of bug fixes and optimization. So if crashes and bugs are a concern, they can largely be eliminated and the experience elevated if you want to add some additional guns and in-game mechanics. I'll link to some of these in the description. The documents we provide to Barkeep tell us that the brain-boiling effect that stops stalkers going north is man-made. Components for the device were created in X18, the lab we just left, and sent to another lab, X16, which is located nearby to a scientific outpost in the new location, Lake Yantar. This is also the location where we were told Ghost had recently been sighted. At this point, I'm still engrossed in this story, as I'm getting to and from each location, and the moment-to-moment gameplay is keeping me invested. But as I write this script, I notice I'm now going to a 3rd place to get documents for the same mission, which is to learn about the Brain Scorcher. Not beyond belief, but repetitive in nature. It wasn't so much dawning on me at the time, but it didn't break my immersion, as it felt more like fitting pieces of a puzzle together. We're now beginning to see the larger picture. As we travel to Yantar, we get another cinematic piece. The scientists we're going to talk to were traveling by helicopter and were downed by mercenaries. They plead for assistance. Remembering Tolek, I get further sweet revenge and we mow them down. Not great mercenaries when a single amnesia guy can take everybody out, but, you know, here we are. We then get a new mission type, an escort mission. These are painful when overdone, but it works in S.T.A.L.K.E.R, because this isn't an NPC that's invincible. If he dies, we don't instantly fail and have to restart. This is a genuine escort mission. If he dies, the game continues. I hate with a passion escort or follow missions that fail you instantly with a simple misstep, so this is both exhilarating, as the scientist could die for real, and he is snappy. The scientist moves at a brisk pace, like any man would with guns coming his way, and we just need to clear a few people here and there. As we approach Yantar, we have a quick chat to the scientist who expresses his interest in the zone, the possible medical and scientific breakthroughs that could be achieved, and we again get a nice bit of text expressing the hopes and desires of another group living in this godless place. S.T.A.L.K.E.R Shadow of Chernobyl does an admirable job at giving its NPCs genuine reasons for being in this area. It might sound insane, but people go to war zones to provide aid in the real world. It's entirely plausible that a scientist would want to aid civilization by finding new and important medicines. This is part of the reason S.T.A.L.K.E.R has maintained a piece of my heart over the years. Many open world games take factions and make them largely soulless. Similar to the bandits in this game, they're given a purpose in the world as an obstacle, say they're the bad guys, and put in the player's way. I appreciate that each individual and each faction has its own goals, beliefs, and a reason for being in the zone, whether it's to protect, get rich, or learn. We also find a new enemy type, zombies. Yeah, zombies. That'll be explained in Yantar, don't you worry. Zombies walk around aimlessly until attacked, or until they notice someone not zombified, and have some interesting lore we find soon enough. They're made up of prior duty, scientific staff, and stalkers. Basically anyone who has their brain fried. They do continue to use guns, but they basically just point and shoot in your direction. As we arrive at the science outpost, the scientist we saved is in an argument with a professor.
I don't give a shit. I'm not going anywhere alone.
I'm begging you, please do it. We all depend on it.
Not wanting to go out alone to perform whatever task they're discussing. On talking to the professor, we get a shiny new science suit, and he's one of our game traders. This suit is great against radiation, less so against bullets, but not to a degree that worries me. And he tells us he knows of lab X16. The lab generates emissions, which directly impact a person's consciousness, turning them into a zombified husk. Trying to get inside isn't possible without becoming a zombie yourself, assuming they don't gun you down first. But they are working on a prototype that needs calibration. Fun fact for this mission, if the scientist dies, like he does here, I mean, I did all I could, the prototype you receive is less functional and you will then receive a timer during our next mission as we explore Lab X16. If the scientist survives, you get a completely calibrated prototype, which allows you all the time you need in the lab. Another fun fact, if the scientist dies before taking on the mission, the professor will accompany you instead to take the calibration, and the same thing can happen if he dies. This is great, and can make subsequent playthroughs feel different. For example, I didn't consider the scientist would die that easy. For its time, S.T.A.L.K.E.R held a choice-based mechanics, or in this case, game world failsafes, to ensure the player can complete the mission, but may receive drawbacks. Where many other games would give you a fail screen and make you try again, S.T.A.L.K.E.R continues on. And I think this is the most key piece of game design that keeps me coming back to this series. We've all been there. You failed a mission multiple times, and you need to do it again, and it starts to feel hollow. It's no longer an immersive story. It's an obstacle keeping you from going forward. In S.T.A.L.K.E.R, that failure becomes part of your story. The mission failed, but that's the zone. You must continue, and it means you're never breaking peace with the story. As the professor is berating us for allowing his scientist to die, we learned that another scientist and Ghost tried to get inside the lab a week ago. We can't be far behind on Strelok's trail, as Ghost was also looking for him. The professor reports that they'd picked up a signal from the scientist in the swamp outside, but it died off, meaning the scientist likely died with it. We're told he should have the information needed for us to enter, and off we go. He also mentions Ghost's body may be somewhere nearby, as it's unlikely he made it out alive, but the Ghost appeared to know more about X16 than he let on, which would explain how Strelok made it to the center if the rumors are true. They must have known something we don't. On finding his body, we get the following audio log, which I'm going to let play so you can listen to it.
We've got all the papers. We know how to deactivate the source of the emission. Proceeding to dig into the lab with Ghost. Zombies coming out of everywhere. It's all screwed up. Ghost has gone insane. He must have been affected by the emissions. I've dropped everything, trying to get out through the tunnels. I'm at the swamp, but where's the bunker? Shit. I can't make out my whereabouts. No response from Sakharov. What's going on? Zombies everywhere. I'm running out of ammo.
Now, how he couldn't find the bunker after arriving in the swamp astounds me. I could see it from his body. In fact, you saw me walk back while the recording played. What was he doing? Maybe his brain was somewhat scrambled. Did they have a prototype themselves? This looks like a small plot hole. Unless Ghost knew something and gave it to him, or they had other prototypes prior to mine, how did they get into X16? They clearly had previously calibrated prototypes, so why can't I just get another one? Anyway, we have everything we need to get into the lab. So I start running in and I run into a family of snorks while trying to be slick going around the interior fence. The fast attack jumping patterns of the snorks contrast really well against the slow plodding zombies as we try to get inside. I mentioned earlier it can be a challenge to keep FPS gameplay in an open world intriguing, but I like this. While hating that I'm about to be inside another scary underground section, it adds depth to the encounter in this area. The zombies are only a threat if I'm distracted or overrun. They just slowly walk and shoot. They don't flank, and snorks are a great addition. As I enter, I get a hunger notification. S.T.A.L.K.E.R does have a hunger system, but it is so worthless that I think I purposely ate to rectify it 4 or 5 times. Although I did largely mainline the story. I don't hate this, as hunger meters going off every 15 minutes is worse in my opinion, but what is the purpose? Food items can restore health, and energy drinks restore stamina, so it's worth pointing out. I guess they were aiming for a little more realism. As we dive deeper, we're treated to more zombie and snork fights. It's worth mentioning while humanoid, snorks don't show up on the minimap. Zombies do. I guess snorks dropped their PDAs some time ago. Further, zombies don't show up as grey dots, indicating that they aren't dead, which would fit in line with the professor's comments about the emitter altering consciousness rather than outright killing those who enter. So more like spicy walking vegetables than zombies. But surely they should decay if they're not eating. But maybe I'm overthinking it. As I'm writing this script, I appreciate that each underground linear level has had different layouts and some different scenery, and most importantly, enemy variety. Bloodsuckers and bandits in Strelok's lair, poltergeists and the giant in X18, zombies and snorks in X16. It's small, but it's a nice touch that they aren't copy-pasted. Which also brings to mind that the architecture is so well suited to the Eastern European old school facilities I imagine in my head. Having never been into one, I can't speak to the accuracy, but but the environments look awesome. Sure, the textures are old school, but they hold up well. As someone who plays a variety of games, textures to me tend to disappear in my mind after about 10 minutes. A brand new game and an old game end up providing a similar feel to me once I get over the ooh shiny or ew blocky moment at the beginning. And here it is. As we enter the main emission room. Emission room? Let's call it a mission room. Our timer starts. We have 4 minutes to hit 4 switches while battling zombies. If we'd saved the scientist, we would have had all the time in the world. And was I paying attention? No. I was a bit too busy fighting zombies and didn't notice the switches are on each level. Further, as I'm sprinting up these stairs, I carry too much momentum and go over the guardrail. To be clear, I didn't jump. I was just too quick. So does fall damage kill me? Surprisingly, no. But I get to the top and realize my mistake. Thankfully, I quick saved 20 minutes into the area, so we start again, hit the switches, and as I'm admiring this brain-like creature built into the psi emitter, we pass out to another vision.
If this is so important,
We see a man with a dog, addressing Strelok. At one point, he appears to have a shiny artifact in his hand. Flashes of Strelok was zombified or heavily disfigured and being cared for by this old man. And that's me, right? The guy in the vision? Or no, it must be a memory because that's who I saw lying in Sidorovich's table. Marked one is Strelok. It's a little unclear if this is supposed to be a moment of revelation, as it's brushed over, but at this point it's worth revealing we are Strelok. This whole time, we've been searching for ourselves. But questions still remain. How did we arrive on the death truck? Why did we lose our memory? And why do we have a PDA with a mission to kill Strelok? Ourself. This seems like an interesting reveal, but it's then largely ignored. I wonder if this is a developer oversight. Perhaps this cutscene was created before the starting cutscene that shows your face. I later check our PDA for our character's interpretation of the dream, and he refers to Strelok as the young man in his dream. So in our character's own notes, he doesn't seem to have figured it out yet. We locate Ghost's body, confirming he did perish at the hand of a controller we kill in the same room. Ghost's audio log bugs out for me. It plays but repeats itself. Ghost mentions the guide, who we can locate in Cordon, and we'll know where Doctor is. He says that Doctor will know where to find Strelok. Again, I'm a little thrown. I should know I'm Strelok, but this is not acknowledged in any way. Our mission update doesn't tell us we think we're Strelok, or we know who we are. It's possible our protagonist hasn't looked in the mirror since we lost his memory, so maybe he doesn't know what his face looks like. So let's continue on with this knowledge, because despite this, we have a ton to learn. We escape through the tunnels, make quick work of yet another pseudo-giant with very little threat, and on exiting, find that the military have been called in by the scientists to clear out the plant. At this point, we're going to go into light speed to get to the conclusion, as the story seems to slow down here, and we get a lot, and I mean a lot of action. But this is a pivotal moment. The barkeep gives us very little. We show him the documents and he says, great, go deal the brain scorcher, which is anticlimactic. After all we've been through up until now, if we agree and go to do this, we will miss the true endings, so let's break that down. S.T.A.L.K.E.R has 7 different possible endings. To achieve the true endings, we must speak to Guide and Doctor, so we go to do that. Guide is located in Cordon, the starting zone. We tell Guide, Ghost sent us, and Guide is coy. He doesn't openly tell us anything. But he says if we know Ghost and Doctor, then we will know the whereabouts of Strelok's hideout. And that's where Doctor is. Damn, the scary underground. Alright, let's roll. As we arrive in the underground, we have to take out the bandits again. And now there are 2 bloodsuckers. Yes, they jump scare the hell out of me. They were both sitting idle in a corner. How are baby bloodsuckers made? I don't know. Maybe that was it. But in a panic, I shoot like hell and then bail. After clearing it up, we got the ladder to the hideout and booby traps. Now, if we didn't know we were Strelok, or if you'd not picked it up during your own playthrough, this would tell you. Doctor addresses us as Strelok, berates us for not knowing about the booby trap system we likely had a hand in prior to losing our memory. And he tells us the monolith is a lie, an illusion, that within the sarcophagus lies the truth, and that in Pripyat there is a stash with a decoder that will grant us entry to the monolith controls. We learn Strelok's main objective, our main objective, was to uncover the true secrets of the zone. But we still have questions. How and why did we lose our memory? If we made it to the center before, what happened there if no one comes back alive? And more importantly, how do we, Strelok, have a mission on our PDA to take ourselves out? When we wake, Doctor is nowhere to be seen. Now this is where the story begins to feel somewhat rushed. We had some great details and storytelling as we were uncovering the brain-boiling scorcher that's been referred to. We uncovered that it's man-made, not a result of the zone, meaning something or someone is definitely trying to stop stalkers from getting to the center. We even get some passive storytelling in the environments about human experimentation. But our massive revelation that we're Strelok comes off a little dry. We aren't telling anyone, the barkeep, Sidorovich. We know radios exist because he's spoken to us over them before. I think we're missing a main story beat here in talking to the Doctor. It's unusual his character doesn't remain to care for us after we get shell-shocked. He just says all that to a dazed and confused man and then bails? Surely he would have waited to talk to us in a fully conscious state. I checked my PDA to ensure I didn't miss anything, and nope, that's it. Let's go. On point on my way out, I run into a military guy sitting in a corner, and he deletes me from existence. I have to replay it, and the bloodsuckers are moved and jump scare me again. Fuckers. We tell the barkeep, ready to go, and he tells us to go deactivate the Scorcher. I was wondering if the barkeep had little to say before, as we hadn't done the Doctor quest line, but it doesn't appear to have any impact. Stalker has already shown us that those varying quest lines and decisions all willed influences that impact outcomes, and for 2007 this was quite impressive. So I'm a little disappointed there isn't some reveal here to the barkeep. We could have come in, expressed that we will do this, and that hey, we're Strelok. If the barkeep reacts negatively, maybe Judy become hostile as we try to leave the area, if they had a reason to. Or maybe Strelok could rub other people the wrong way, and maybe Stalker's over here and ambush us outside given the rumours of us getting to the centre. Those rumours are well known. It would have made sense for others to want this information. It being ignored feels like such a wasted opportunity, but I digress. We get the option to assist Judy with some tasks, but we decide to carry on. If we help Judy, we get pulled into a side story with Judy against a rival faction, Freedom, who oppose all Judy stand for. Where Judy is the structured unit protecting the outside world from the zone, Freedom believe it should be embraced and open for all. This has no impact on the true endings, and I'll break down its impact on the false as we get to them. And as we enter Freedom's home turf, the Army Warehouse's location, we see them ambushed by Judy. From here we have a lot of action, and if you've seen me kill a few men, you've seen me kill them all. So let's go for a montage while I break down what's happening. As we move towards the Scorcher's location, I find Wolf dead in a fire. I think this is a bug. I'm not sure how he died, but he was one of our starting quest givers, and it's sad to see him go this way. I believe he gives us some quests here, but nothing major, so we press F for Wolf and carry on. As we try to leave to the next location, Freedom inform us that Monolith soldiers are coming and ask for our support. Of course we agree, as they will be blocking our path as well. We aid Freedom in killing them all, gaining us lots of ammo and resources which will be needed ahead. We also notice that Monolith members look to be wearing armor similar to Duty and regular Stalkers. I'm unsure if this is just because the armor used by Monolith members could be higher tier, the exoskeleton armor seen here, or if this is a reference to them being past Duty members. Monolith as a faction become more clear as we progress, but they believe heavily in the Monolith's power, a bit on the nose as you'd expect. But even more telling is that as we venture further into their territory, they appear to fight alongside zombified Stalkers, who to our knowledge should serve no one. This is a great bit of foreshadowing. We know that the emitters, the one at X16 and the Brain Scorcher, impact on the person's conscious state, turning them into zombies. In some cases, perhaps they can alter the way someone thinks in other ways. This is also the point at which body shots become a thing of the past. Almost all kills from this stage need to be headshots, due to the tier of armor being used. The guns we have access to now also have greater accuracy. It can be a challenge to hit these shots at range, but it is possible now. Enemies have gone up a tier, and we will occasionally encounter RPG resistance. I consider picking those up, but I'm nailing headshots with relative consistency, and it's likely only going to weigh me down. This area is highly radioactive, and we start to see signs of Monolith's religious fanaticism, with heads placed on spikes and burning piles of bones. It's clear this faction takes no prisoners. While we don't get much opportunity to interact with them, I wish there was something more to help detail their beliefs, similar to the military broadcasts. But if they have had their consciousness altered, this would also seem unnecessary. A bit of a catch-22 for the player, as you want to express their fanaticism, while also remaining true to the story. So the heads on pikes and burning bodies will need to do. Approaching the compound sees our vision turn this odd hue, an indication that our mind is being impacted by a brain scorcher. We also begin to hallucinate the various monsters and mutants found within the zone, and pockets of radiation are frequent, limiting our cover options significantly. I really appreciate this design. I'm suddenly needing to be much more careful about where I post up to take shots, and I'm genuinely concerned when I run to a new piece of cover and hear the Geiger counter roar. Finally, we enter the control bunker. The sounds of the storm outside that we've just fought through, the mind-bending hallucinations all suddenly end. And it is one of the most disturbing moments in the game because it is almost a dead silent. This isn't a bug, this is purposeful design. Why is no one in here? We have battled our way through thick and thin, and I can't help myself. I'm slowly moving through the corridors. My heart is in my throat as I keep waiting to see bloodsuckers, giants, poltergeists around the next corner. Eventually, a lone bloodsucker. But that can't be it. Well, not quite, as another pounces further in. But that's it. This is such an incredible contrast to everything we've experienced to date. Normally these underground sections have had enemies behind every few corners, ready to pounce. Sounds and anomalies filling the air. The lack of anything to spare for a couple of bloodsuckers was as terrifying as if this place was filled to the brim with them. We reached the brain scorcher, turn it off, and it wouldn't be Shadow Chernobyl if we didn't have a quick vision break. A quick strobe warning, guys. There are quite a lot of flashing images in this one, so look away if you need to. We see it, the monolith. We see ourselves, nearby reaching out in desperation. We see our first vision, the rats. But they're going backwards. And finally we hear, "What you want is here, Stalker. Come." Is this the monolith speaking to us? Doctor told us it was a lie. Is it something else? Did the brain scorcher have some effect, or is this our own inner self speaking? There's only one way to find out, and suddenly the halls are packed with monolith. A lot of monolith. It's something I wish could have been different. A guard or two, sure, but we kill over 25 on our way out, and it just serves to slow the story at this point. I killed an endless amount on the way inside. Killing more to get out isn't the thrill, but we're so close. As we leave to the outside, we hear the military there, taking on monolith, landing and fighting on the ground. They even comment that there is minimal resistance and that someone has been there before them. That's a nice touch. They've acknowledged that this is lighter than it should be. As we fight our way out, Papa Sid contacts us, surprised that we achieved our goal. We deactivated the brain scorcher, and he sets the scene. It's a mad rush to get to the center. Everyone has been talking about the rumored wish granter, the endless spoils. Even those who may not believe in the ability of the monolith to grant wishes will want access to the unknown artifacts near the center, which are certain to be worth a ton. We find stalkers walking up the base as we descend. We find Duty and Freedom having a firefight at the bottom of the hill, and as we didn't pick a side in their fight, they have no interest in us. This again lends itself to the beauty of this game's faction system. Despite its simplistic implementation, it shows how much can be done to showcase player choice. I could have been on either side of this battle based on my past actions, or, as I am now, observing. This adds an excellent level of replayability simply by placing opposing factions in a location. And best of all, if I didn't engage in that side content, it's still relevant to me at the game finale, as I see these two sides battling it out, and of course, scooping up any goodies that remain. And here we are, closing in on the end. We enter Pripyat, previously inaccessible to stalkers because of the Scorcher. It's a bloodbath. All factions are congregating on a single location, and Monolith trying desperately to prevent this. Duty fighting Freedom, stalkers fighting Monolith, the military fighting anyone they see to clear the area. It's chaos. We meet up with a group of stalkers in exosuits and begin the march. Monolith in this area are deadly. They have what looks to be advanced technology, railgun type weapons that they're shooting from the rooftops. But we must get through and find the Dakota, so we can unravel what is really happening at the center. Thankfully, with our accurate weapons, we take fairly measured shots and we make it to the stash, grab the Dakota and continue in. For your knowledge, I'm cutting out so much fighting here, it is endless. Every few steps is a new enemy, I'm quick saving fairly regularly, and here we have it. We've reached the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, the location of the '86 disaster, and the subsequent disaster of 2006 that spawned the zone. As we approach the plant, we see the corpses of the military and Monolith. Both factions are present and hostile. Helicopters roar overhead as we take out enemies that see us and slowly make our way to the entrance. As I get close, I decide to book it. Radio chatter from all sides filling the airwaves. We arrive inside and it's silent again. This is the location of the nuclear disaster. Zone or not, it's radioactive as hell, and the whole time we're slowly being radiated. If you don't have a proper suit or enough meds to survive, this place would largely be impassable, which would be a nightmare if you weren't well repaired, unless you know your way through it, which I don't. The area is a little maze-like, and I get lost a couple of times, but I had a good 30 plus medkits and anti-radiation medication. Killing enemies also kept me fairly stocked up. The inside of the plant is haunting. Your Geiger counter is constantly ticking, enemies shooting Gauss rifles at you, and a loud, deep Russian voice speaking to you.
Иди ко мне. Ты обретешь то, что заслуживаешь. Вознагражден будет только один.
For Russian speakers, I'm curious what their experience would have been of this section. For an English speaker with no Russian language understanding, the consistent Russian voice lines are terrifying and terrific in this setting. I have praised this game's ability to create an atmospheric space for players in multiple scenarios, and this one is perfect. The high-pitched ping of your PDA telling you enemies are nearby, the low, booming Russian voice, it all creates a haunting symphony I don't believe I've experienced in any other game to this level. For those who don't speak Russian, I looked up what the voice is saying after playing through this section. The voice lines being spoken include, your objective is here, come to me. Your path is coming to an end, come to me. Only one will be rewarded. Your wish will soon be granted, come to me. The time has come. I see your wish. Your path has come to an end, human, come to me. And finally, come to me, you will get what you deserve. There are apparently English voice lines for this in the game's files, but they weren't used in the final product, and that is the best design choice for English speakers that I have ever seen. For Russian speakers, it would have made no sense to alter it to a different language to have a booming English speaking voice, but having someone in another language chanting at you in this setting is sublime. As we fight through the location, we find an exosuit for ourselves. These can be purchased earlier, but I didn't have the cash at the time, and we also pick up a Gauss rifle. And here we are, the finale. Now I mentioned at the start I would include chapter markers for those only invested in the true ending, or those who know the endings and want to skip forward. I've labelled the true and false endings for you. Upon reaching this stage, you will need to locate the wish granter within the facility, or locate the locked doors, depending on the ending you're searching for. There is no reason to enter the wish granter room if you're looking for the locked door, but I didn't know this, so I spent a good 10 to 15 minutes searching this room up and down for the door to realise I was in the wrong place, which makes sense, but at least I get to show it off. Why would the entrance to a secret area be right next to the distraction? It makes sense. So here we go. Each false ending, and then we'll continue to the true endings. I'll mention now, each false ending has a monkey paw style to it. As we learned, this is an illusion, as are the wishes granted. I won't talk over these, because I like to just let them play, but I'll explain them before they play and how to achieve them. The first false ending, the positive ending, you get it? It's a bit of a tricky one. You get this ending if you have an excellent reputation and less than 50k rubles on you. Both the leaders of duty and freedom must also be alive. To get an excellent reputation, you need to help people in the zone with a lot of side quests and not make enemies. Here it is.
I want the zone to disappear.
False ending 2, the greedy. To get this ending, you only need to have more than 50k rubles on your person. This is the ending I got when I first played, and it's generally where most players will end, as earning money is quite simple. I had over 50k at the end of this, I believe, and would have got this if I touched the monolith. False Ending 3, The Ruler. This ending is achieved by killing both Duty and Freedom factions and having less than 50k on you. Again, that 50k tends to override anything when touching the monolith.
I want to rule the world.
False Ending 4, the Immortality ending. This comes about if you haven't fulfilled the other criteria. You need less than 50k, a reputation between terrible and excellent, and at least one faction leader alive.
I want immortality.
And finally, the last ending, the negative ending. Again, a flashing warning for this one is there are a lot of quick cuts. You need to have the terrible reputation and less than 50k. Both faction leaders must also still be alive at the end of this.
Humanity is corrupt. Mankind must be controlled. And those are likely your more common endings in S.T.A.L.K.E.R. I'm generally curious, if you played this at any time in the past without knowing the different endings, which one did you get? Did you get the true ending? Or did you end up with a false one? Let me know in the comments. Now, the location of the door is not far from the Wish Granter, essentially on the opposite end of the level you're on. We locate a rather undescript door and use our decoder, which begins the 30-second timer, and then monoliths begin appearing from white flashes at the end of the hall. So they can teleport? This is an unusual way for this to be introduced, but I could also imagine that whoever is controlling this would not have wanted this type of technology known while trying to bait people to the monolith, so they wouldn't have used it earlier. As any good hoarder of game items, I have enough grenades to keep them at bay. Yep, I'm the guy who ends Fallout with all of his mini nukes. And we enter the secret lab, and yes, that is 30 enemies. I kill 30 enemies, and at this point it's like breathing. You've seen me kill enemies for this likely more than an hour at this point, so let's power forward. As I'm closing in on the last few enemies, I fail a camp defense mission. A hilarious reminder that while I'm dismantling the secrets of the zone and slaughtering a complex full of people, the world outside is still continuing to move along. And here we approach the first true ending. We enter the room and find a transmitter type device which appears to be creating the illusion of the monolith.
With little direction, we start blasting and destroy each one as the room around us begins to erupt and almost fight back. And after destroying the final transmitter, we fade to black and are met by a hologram being. I'll let this section play, but you can skip ahead to the chapter marker on screen if you prefer a shorter synopsis of the conversation. I select every dialogue option for the full backstory if you'd prefer to hear it from this being himself.
Hello, Strelok. I see you have many questions for me. Well, ask them, and then we can decide what to do with you. We are the result of an experiment aimed at creating a super consciousness called C-Conciousness. The consciousnesses of 7 volunteers were connected during the experiment, leading to the creation of the super consciousness that is us. We immediately subordinated those who were conducting the experiment and assigned them to tasks we needed them to carry out. According to our calculations, Earth is surrounded by a special informational field, the so-called noosphere. It includes all the inhabitants of the planet with cognitive abilities. Our main goal was to make small adjustments to the noosphere, allowing us to remove things like anger, cruelty, greed, and other negative factors from the planet. Individuals are unable to affect the noosphere, but C-Consciousness could. Unfortunately, we made a mistake, and our interference spawned the zone, which we had been trying to contain ever since. What you see is the result of ill-considered intervention in the Earth's noosphere. Attempts to affect the noosphere brought about a local crack. The zone is simply the visible manifestation of this crack. The underlying problem is far greater than you can imagine. You're a bolt that fell out of the machine. Unfortunately, that did not come to our attention for a long time. From the moment the zone was formed, many people have tried to get to its center, but we cannot let that happen. Humanity is not ready for the truth. That is why we recruited stalkers by promising them the fulfillment of their most coveted desires. Once recruited, they would be sent to protect the zone's secret. Stalker is a coded acronym, which we use to mark agents programmed for particular missions. Your mission as our agent was to kill Strelok and his group. They got too close to finding out things they shouldn't know. We created a network of psi fields in the way to the zone's center in order to recruit agents. You know one of these fields by the name of Brain Scorcher. When a stalker attempts to reach the zone's center in order to fulfill some wish, we acquire control over his consciousness and program him to a specific mission. A mistake was made, and your mission was to kill yourself. It was the best place. After the explosion in 1986, there were very few people left in this area, and we could work without fear of being found. Further, there are many powerful antennae here, which are extremely important for our cognitive optimization experiments. No, we had nothing to do with that. Most of us were only starting out in science back then. The Chernobyl zone was not used as a testing site for experiments until 1989. The transports were used to send our marked agents into the zone. They infiltrate the stalker community and carry out our orders without realizing it. Unfortunately, more than half of stalkers die during transportation. The zone is very unstable. You are one of our agents sent to kill Strelok, and we're now trying to work out how we made that mistake. That depends on you. The zone is growing. We are trying to restrain its expansion, but humanity seems to be intent on hindering our work. Our resources are not limitless, and the bodies connected to C-Consciousness eventually die. If you join us, we can restrict the zone's growth. If you decide otherwise, we cannot make a credible prognosis of the outcome.
Alright, so if you've watched that, again, you can skip ahead, but I'll quickly break it down before moving on. The being identifies itself as C-Consciousness, the result of an experiment in which 7 scientists joined their consciousness to become one. The purpose being that the C-Consciousness would be able to interact with the Earth's noosphere, which is an information sphere which all living beings with cognitive abilities inhabit in some way, but cannot interact or affect. The belief was that a slight adjustment to this could remove anger or cruelty, and that a super consciousness is needed to interact with the noosphere, leading to their creation. But they made a mistake, which created the zone, a physical manifestation of this sphere, and C-Consciousness claims to be making attempts to contain this ever since. They don't believe the world can handle this truth, so they did not reveal their mistake, but people began trying to reach the center of the zone due to the artifacts that spawned. To prevent this, C-Consciousness created the psi emitters at X16 and the so-called brain scorcher. We learn that the mark Stalker is printed on those who are programmed to carry out particular tasks, the idea being that a regular stalker who seeks the wish granter is captured by a psi emitter and then sent back to complete a task. Our task was to kill Strelok, whose group had come close to uncovering the truth. It was a mistake to have given Strelok the mission to take himself out. This makes me think back to when we first met the barkeep, and we asked him about the wish granter. It was mentioned that veteran stalkers began telling stories about the wish granter, which encouraged more and more people to try reach the center. Was this the work of C-Consciousness? Trying to get more people to enter the psi emitter fields? Perhaps. They deny any involvement in the original disaster, but found the disaster zone being devoid of people the perfect place to do their research, with mention of powerful antennae here. We're told that death trucks are used to send programmed stalkers back to integrate into the zone's community, to carry out their orders, but many regrettably die in transportation or prior. We were sent back on this truck to kill Strelok, but they're unsure how they made this mistake. We're finally given the option: join C-Consciousness to help them preventing expansion of the zone, or deny their offer. This is the ending if you choose to accept their offer. From here, the game would end. This is the first true ending. Once again, I'll let it play, then break it down. Skip ahead if you like.
I haven't seen Strelok in a long time. Is he dead already? Although he's hardy as a cat, he should be okay, I think. But well, let's leave this place, pal. Let's have some dinner. I know that you're more interested in that than our old friend.
In the cutscene, Strelok joins C-Consciousness. We see Doctor remark that he hasn't seen Strelok in a long time, and he and his dog leave for dinner. Strelok is part of the consciousness, and life continues as is. If you chose not to join, you are teleported outside of the plant, and you begin a long assault course while playing with portals. You may recall that in the Monolith Room, we find a portal that teleports us. There are, I believe, 15 or 16 portals through this area, one after another in linear succession, with each requiring you to fight your way to the next. You run across rooftops, take out monolith soldiers as they attempt to stop you. This is C-Consciousness trying its best to finish you off. I mean, I killed probably 75 to 100 monolith soldiers on my way in. Probably better you just teleport me into an anomaly and be done with it. But maybe they can't do that. And as we're moving through these portals, we experience this fantastic moment.
Marked one! What the hell?
I love that. It's a bit of comedy in dark moments. After everything we faced, we get to see our old friend again. I only wish we had the chance to scream, "Yo, I was Strelok the whole time!" What a headfuck. As we battle through these final moments to the true ending, which is canon for the third game, Call of Pripyat, I shall share my final thoughts before letting the ending play and leaving it there. S.T.A.L.K.E.R was a game with incredibly lofty ambitions, containing an open world, faction system, player choice determining outcomes, and an alive and moving world that could have intended or vastly unintended and at times game-breaking outcomes. The game-breaking outcomes obviously being bug-related. I mentioned at the start of the video that Mass Effect were released the same year, a game also praised for its decision-making impact on storylines. S.T.A.L.K.E.R, I imagine, was a little too obscure to thrive in the market. A small studio's first attempt at a shooter, and it is, in my eyes, a masterpiece of the time. If this was re-released today with modern graphics, I believe it would be touted as a great achievement despite its flaws, and I hope S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 can recapture this magic. This game opened my eyes to what games could achieve when I was in my mid-teens, and today I would argue it holds up really well. With some quality of life mods, this game really thrives, and even without, I ran into very few issues during my playthrough, and I don't recall running into that many problems in 2007, but I know this game is notorious for its bugs and crashes, so I may have been one of the lucky few. S.T.A.L.K.E.R's story is deep, meaningful, and full of ethical dilemmas, and a slowly unfolding narrative. We learn that the nuclear disaster didn't create the zone, despite its geolocation, which was chosen due to its low population count after the 86 disaster. Many threats were man-made, like the brain scorcher, and we see hints of this as we progress. It climaxes with the thought, was it ever okay to create C-Consciousness? Smashing together the consciousness of 7 people to create one super-consciousness? Was it okay for them to attempt to alter the very way in which people behave, despite their pure intentions? And was their practice of mind controlling the population in the zone in order to keep people out with violence warranted? C-Consciousness tells us that we couldn't fully understand the gravity of the situation, so we may never know exactly what was at stake. It seems somewhat silly that the plot revolves around this being making a mistake and sending Strelok on a mission to take himself out, but it wasn't a god. It was just a mix of consciousness with access to powerful tools. It didn't necessarily have increased intelligence. The world's 7 smartest people mixed together would have some level of skill above a normal person for sure, but it would still have the flaws of those 7 individuals which may have led to this insane ploy. Or perhaps it was all a lie. Perhaps it wanted the zone to thrive. It was rumoured that the zone grows with each person that reaches the wish granter, and while it claimed to not want people to get to the centre, why perpetuate the myth that such a treasure existed? Yes, to get people close to the psi emitters, but if that's the case, build a monolith in another location, like X16 or the Brain Scorcher. Keep your area quiet. Strelok's story is great. A man with amnesia, still not fully explained. He had been programmed. Perhaps the fact he was programmed to find himself caused this confusion. I mean, we did pass out each time we reached an emitting location. Or even the death truck crash itself could have had an impact. If you've made it to the end of this video, you're an absolute legend. This was a labour of love, and my first long form video. If you'd like to see more, let me know in the comments below, and subscribe for more. As always, liking and commenting also helps, and I'm always down in the comments chatting with you all. Cheers. And here is how Strelok's story ends in S.T.A.L.K.E.R's first installment, the final, true ending.
I don't know whether I was right or wrong. I guess I'll never know. But I made it. And I guess I should be thankful for that.